Hi, I'm Zack Rocklin-Waltch. If you want to learn more about Confessions of a Former Boy Detective at Hollywood Fringe 2021, watch this video. So I think I fell in love with theater when I was 7 years old. I was a very shy child. I did not like talking to people or meeting people. Um, and my mom, to get me to come out of my shell, signed me up for Peter Pan at the local children's theater. And I was cast as Little Pirate number 2. That was my first role. Um, and I hated it. I hated the whole process at first. Um, but when I stepped out on stage for the first time on that opening night, that like feeling of exhilaration just filled me up. Um, and I think I just had that moment of like that I need to do this. This is what I need to do. I like signed up for all the other shows I could do, and I've been doing theater ever since then. It's really been the one constant in my life. I don't see myself being able to do anything else. It's the one thing that's felt familiar and comforting and important to me. Um, I I feel like I need to be a part of theater because I don't really know what else I would be doing. So there's a lot of writers in my family. So I think I started writing when I was very young, before I knew how to actually write, before I was literate. I would dictate stories to my mom, who is also a writer, and she would write them down for me. Um, and I would illustrate with pictures. My grandma's a writer, so I grew up with like her. She wrote murder mysteries, so I grew up with her murder mystery books on the shelves, and her telling me the plots of these gruesome murder mystery books when I was probably way too young, but I was so fascinated. Um, and My parents talk about how when I was very little, I would have my little toys and be acting out intense interpersonal dramas with like Thomas the Tank Engines. Um, I don't know how embellished that is, but that always fascinated me. It always was the most compelling part of imagination and playing, was the storytelling, was the characters. Um, and so I would continue it, and as I learned how to write myself, and as I um, sort of honed my craft, I took creative writing classes, um, poetry classes. Uh, English was always my favorite subject in school. I loved reading. I've always loved reading. Um, and so this idea of narrative and storytelling um, has really filled up so much of my life, from my family to my interests to my friendships. Um, and I think it's always been an obsession for me. I don't think there was a point in my life where it became an obsession, but I've always been obsessed with the idea of storytelling and writing. Um, and when I got to college and I started studying theater more seriously, I really fell in love with plays and how different playwrights make use of theatrical space to tell stories that can't be told in any other medium, that are inherently theatrical. Plays like Angels in America, Suzanne Laurie Parks's Venus, and Father Comes Home from the Wars. I think those two playwrights really opened my eyes to what theater can do that no other art form can do. And so I dove into playwriting, and I've been writing plays ever since. I think for a lot of reasons. One, just the ephemeral nature of theater. I think any theater artist will tell you that that really is what makes theater so special. The fact that it is performer and audience experiencing moments as they happen in real life and as they pass in real life. You experience live interactions, live actions, live reactions that are there for a second then go, and that's beautiful. You know, on Netflix you can rewind, you can go to a movie theater and rewatch a movie, but you never get the same performance twice. And then I also think that that experience of performer and audience in the same space creates a really magical experience for both audience and performer. because the line between show and audience can be blurred, and the lines between reality and unreality are blurred, and the suspension of disbelief, of course, goes so much further in theater than it does in film. So you can have elements of magical realism or fourth wall breaking enter a theatrical space in ways that you can't in any other medium, and really start to imitate the human imagination in really limitless ways. Once you unlock what a theatrical space can hold and what kind of stories can be told in it, I think you really open the door for really visceral and pure expressions of human emotion and human interaction. Usually the idea will hit me like in the shower or when I'm driving or something, and so I'll immediately, if I'm trying to come up with an idea for a new play, I'll be like sitting in front of my computer with my notebook, just like turning it over and over in my head and not coming up with anything, and then I'll be taking a shower or I'll be driving home from work or something, and something will just hit me, and so I'll try to like hold on to it so it doesn't slip away, I don't forget it, and then immediately, like as soon as I leave the shower or the car or wherever I am, run to my notebook and just start filling up, usually just pages of ideas, writing moments that I think could be interesting to include, characters, narrative structure, narrative arc, whatever sort of just comes to me in the moment, and then I'll start to fill out. I really like to have a narrative structure planned out from the start, so I know the beats that I'm going to hit throughout, and I have ideas of what moments I want to include, and so I'll usually spend a few weeks just in that stage of journaling, notebooking, planning out, listening to people around me to come up with like character ideas, or going through old notes that I make about things like my sister said or my friend said, to try to round out characters with things that I've experienced in real life to, I think, add a note of reality and humanity beyond just my own imagination. And then I'll sit down and write a first draft. And that is always such a fun process because it's, ideas I've been planning and writing for weeks at that point in my notebook, and then bringing it to life in the format that I've been waiting to do it in is always a very exciting process. And then it's sort of the slog of rewrites, revisions. I have some people in my life who are just fantastic, have a really clear idea of my style and some of my pitfalls and some of my strengths, and so I'm so lucky to have family and friends who will read my first drafts and give me fantastic feedback, and so then going through it with second drafts, third drafts, revisions, rewrites, all of that editing process, until you kind of reach a point where you have to just let it be as it is and dive into the next stages of the process with it. I first heard about the Hollywood Fringe Festival just earlier this year, actually. My producer, Wendy Hui, she just graduated from USC's theater production major, and she's a very dear friend of mine. And I was getting dinner with her earlier in the spring, in around March, and she was saying that she wants to produce theater, to create something, and she knows I'm a writer, and so she asked if I'd be interested in writing a play for the Hollywood Fringe. And I'm very familiar with Edinburgh Fringe, and I know about New York Fringe. I didn't know Hollywood had a Fringe festival. I've only been in Hollywood for a couple years now, and so I was super excited by that prospect. I love Fringe festivals. I love these opportunities for creators to come and produce new and exciting and weird works that you don't see really in other places. Just such new and bizarre ideas coming up. And I've always wanted to be part of a festival like that. And so it was kind of a no-brainer. I was immediately on board with it. And and started coming up with possible play ideas for her, and sort of workshop different things, and came to the play that we have now. And it's been kind of a whirlwind process, but it's super exciting. My producer Wendy told me about Theater Asylum early on in the process because she had previously been talking with the people there about producing a play last year for Hollywood Fringe, which of course didn't end up happening. And so she knew the space and she knew the people there. And she showed me photos online and was saying that she was thinking about using this space again. And such a beautiful, intimate theater setting. These black box theaters, I love black box theaters. I think that they really make way for a lot of creativity because they're so bare bones and very intimate, which I also love, that intimacy between the audience and the performer on stage. And they're so open to the artists and the artistic process. They have a very great sense of how to work with artists there and how to give us the freedom to produce the pieces that we're interested in producing. And that felt great to me, that they were just so open to anything we wanted to do. And so, yeah, it's been an awesome collaboration so far. So the idea for the play Confessions of a Former Boy Detective was something that's been sitting in me for a very long time. I think my grandma, as I said, is a mystery novelist. So I grew up sort of steeped in mystery novels. I would get gory details of plot lines from my grandma when I was like 4. And I think that sort of instilled a love of mystery. My grandfather loves Sherlock Holmes and would sort of recite old Sherlock Holmes stories to me when I was younger. And I was really into those kid detective stories when I was little. I loved Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, Encyclopedia Brown, A to Z mysteries. I couldn't get enough of those sorts of books. So it's always been fun to play around with the idea of child mysteries. I've sort of hinted at it in other things I've written, but I've never written a piece that really dives into the idea. And then I also love genre fiction. I think that genre fiction really allows the writer to explore very niche ideas, whether it's fantasy or sci-fi or mystery. There are tropes in those genres. And if you sort of use those tropes and manipulate those tropes to sort of explore what makes those genres beloved, I think you can get at some really interesting ideas. So I guess sort of a metatextual approach to genre fiction has always fascinated me. And so this idea of a guy who used to be a real-life Nancy Drew or Encyclopedia Brown kind of kid, who is now no longer a detective and no longer does detective work, and how do you grow up from that? Like, what is the process from child detective wonderkind to adult person, and how does that idea of childhood sort of play into your life, and how do you get from point A to point B, and all of those ideas really interested me. And once I got that idea, I think when I was in the shower, it just like latched on, and I just started writing ideas for stories that this guy could tell, and things that could have happened to him, and what sort of traumas he would be dealing with, and what kind of sense of humor he would have developed, and all those ideas. And so I brought that in with a few other ideas to Wendy, and that was the one that we were both really excited about. And so it just became a really fun process of expanding this world and this guy's life, and telling that story. So Confessions of a Former Boy Detective is about Daniel Davidowicz, who is a 20-year-old college student who is sort of at a directionless place in his life. But he used to be a child detective along with his twin sister. They were the Davidowicz detectives when they were in middle school, and they solved mysteries. They were sort of locally famous, and Daniel is no longer a detective, and he's trying to make sense of his life up to where he is now, how he sort of ended up at this driftless place, unsure, directionless. He's reflecting on the events that led up to this disastrous final case that ended his career as a detective along with his sister, and he's reflecting on the events leading up to a fallout between him and his sister that sort of carries on to the moment of the play, reflecting on this sort of fractured relationship he has with his twin sister, and sort of trying to make sense of how he got where he is now. Approaching this piece as a solo performance piece has definitely been an interesting process. I've never done solo theater before. This is my first time diving into that. I have a lot of experience in multiple person casts, but never solo work. And I think the big difference is creating the dynamic with the audience that you would ordinarily have with the other actors on stage. So instead of working with other actors and other characters, try to work with them and get something from them as a character, as an actor, you're doing that with the audience. So you're trying to, or at least in this piece, what the approach is they're my scene partners. They're the people I'm working with. They're the people I'm trying to talk to and work on and get stuff from. And obviously it's a very one-sided conversation, but the way it's written definitely is meant to feel like a conversation. I, as Daniel, am telling this story to them and trying to work with them to put the pieces together and sort of illuminate my life and figure out how I got where I am and help them figure out how I got where I am. And so that's a really, it's an exciting thing because it's so fun to have that audience dynamic. I looked a lot at Shakespeare soliloquies because so many of those are characters talking directly to the audience and trying to get them on their side or tell them what their plan is or tell them what they're struggling with at the moment. And so a lot of those really informed the writing process, actually, in terms of how to write a long speech that also interacts with the audience. And it's also very daunting because it is a one-sided conversation that you have to carry and really stay engaged with the audience as scene partner throughout the entire runtime, and make them feel included in the story and make them feel like we're on this journey together. We're discovering something together. It's not just about me. It's about us, audience and performer, discovering the story as we go. I think I want the audience to leave with a sense of an understanding of agency, especially in regards to the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. I think that we put a lot of labels on ourselves throughout our lives that sort of lock us into thinking we are a certain way. And we can rely on others to sort of push us in the ways that we tell ourselves that we can't. You say, oh, I'm not really a people person. I have friends who sort of bring me out of my shell, or things like that, where we tell ourselves that we're a certain way, and that limits us. And how do we understand ourselves beyond those labels? How do we push ourselves beyond what we tell ourselves we can do? And how do we make room to unlearn those uh, those boxes that we've put ourselves in. Um, I think that's the main takeaway that I'd like to get at with this play. Um, that we have agency in our lives beyond what we tell ourselves we do, and that you're not just the person you always have thought you are, but you are everyone you've ever met, and that imbues you with the abilities of everyone you've ever met, and um, you internalize those, and you can push yourself beyond this limited idea of you that you think you are. I would love people to come see Confessions of a Former Boy Detective. I think it's a funny piece. You're gonna get to laugh and talk with me, and it's a profound piece. It talks about issues of mental illness, addiction, loneliness, isolation, and confronts them in ways that are really meaningful to me. And because they mean so much to me, I can only assume that they will mean something to someone else, someone out there. Um, and I think it's a really fun and exciting way to get at these ideas. It's not just a depressing story about addiction and alcoholism and sibling fraught sibling relationships and all of that, but it's a kid detective story. Who doesn't like a kid detective story? So it's all of that sort of wrapped up into one, and there's a lot of fun to be had, and there's a lot of drama to be had, and I think it's not something you want to miss. I think at the festival I'm really hoping to engage with the audience. I'm really hoping to create a space where this line is blurred between performer and audience. I think the space makes that so easy with the sort of intimate black box setting. I think the piece is written in a way that makes room for that. And I would really love to see that out of the performance. It's been so long since we've had live theater, and so much that makes live theater so special is that intimate relationship between performer and audience. And I really think that that's going to be something that you're going to get out of this play that is very unique and very special. And that's something I'm really hoping to see out of it, is that level of audience engagement, that close relationship that gets built up over the course of the narrative, over the course of the story, and a lot of important bonds that then make the character more real to the people watching. I think people should absolutely see as many plays as you can. It's such an amazing opportunity to just have Hollywood just inundated with new and exciting theater at this time. And I don't know about other people, but I have been starved for live theater. I've been waiting for it to come back. So I'm going to be out at as many places as I can. And I think everyone else should be too, because we haven't had a chance to do this in such a long time. And it's so exciting. It's such an exciting time to be excited about theater. So take advantage of it. I really think that events like the Hollywood Fringe are really vital to artistic economy. It provides spaces for new, up-and-coming, undiscovered artists, theater artists, to really come and tell the stories that they want to tell. It's an open festival, so anyone can put on a show in it, and I think that's incredible. To be part of a Fringe festival, that name has such legitimacy, and to have that open to any play, as weird or new or groundbreaking or envelope pushing as it might be, that's necessary. That's necessary for us as artists to have spaces like that where people can really test the waters, where people can really go beyond and not worry about what other people are going to think of it, but tell a story that means something to them, and know that because it's meaningful to them, it has meaning. And art, theater, stories that have meaning um, are so important. They're what feeds us. They're what inspires people. They're what pushes us to continue creating. I'm so grateful that Hollywood Fringe exists, and that it will continue to exist, and that I get to be a part of it for this year. I think in a similar vein, local theaters are incredibly important. You know, they sort of provide um, a sense of community for the area that they're in. Um, People getting to go and see local theater for prices that um, aren't Broadway prices, um, or even like Pasadena Playhouse prices, but just um, accessible theater um, is what gets people excited about theater in the first place. Um, I'm from Boston, and I was just home for a little while. And every year on the Boston Common, in this park in the center of Boston, they do Shakespeare on the Common. And so many people turn up for it every single year to just see a Shakespeare play. It's free, it's open, and I think that sort of thing that builds community. You know, local theaters bring people together. It's always been true since the advent of theater in ancient Greece. It's what has brought people together as audiences to see stories and see works that talk about their lives and their emotions and issues that are important to them, or open their eyes to issues that they might not be aware of, and it connects people, and it challenges people, and it drives people, and I love seeing local shows. I love seeing local theaters create works that are open to the community that they're in, and that are accessible to the community that they're in, because it really provides something so important and so enriching to those communities. I think just, it's been such a treat to get to work on this. My creative team, Wendy, my producer, and Diaya, my director, are such talented young women who are just some of the smartest and most creative theater artists that I know right now. And to get to work with them and to produce a play that is so close to my heart and means so much to me, and to put it up right when theater is coming back, it all is so meaningful and really inspiring, and so exciting. So I'm just really grateful. I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and I'm really happy that people are going to come and see the show, and I can't wait to share it with everyone. I'm Zack Rocklin-Waltch, and if you enjoyed this conversation about Confessions of a Former Boy Detective at Hollywood Fringe 2021 at Theater Asylum in Hollywood, would love to have you there. Would love to see you there. Thanks so much.